Milton, you are absolutely, positively, permanently punished. You will live on a diet of saltines and tang, and you will never leave this room again. Devil child! Devil child!
By this it is evident who are the children of God and who are the children of the devil. Whoever does not practice righteousness is not of God, nor is the one who does not love his brother. Seeking the heart of God, next on So What?
Hi, I'm Chris Dorman.
And I'm Don Waite.
Welcome back to So What? In this, which I believe will be our final podcast in this series, I think, we wanted to take a look at something that's super, super important and something I don't think we've really emphasized. I think we've talked about it, I think we've touched on it, but I think this series would be incomplete if we didn't talk about this specifically. We have been really concentrating on our own individual pursuit of the Lord and our own heart before God and seeking our God. But our relationship with Christ is not just about our relationship with Christ.
It's not, is it?
Nope, not at all.
It's also about our relationship with one another. I mean,
Yes.
what is the heart of God? We're talking about seeking the heart of God. God's heart is not just that we love Him and seek after Him, but also to love our brother, right?
That's right.
And
That's
so
right.
this opening context, when you read that, it's like, man, that is harsh.
Oh, that's not very loving.
That is very indicting. Yeah, you're like, what? You're a devil spawn?
You're saying you're a child of Satan if you don't love your brother. Well, love your brother. Well, what does that mean? I mean, because love could be such an amorphous, ethereal kind of a thing. Well, what does that mean? Well, as luck would have it, John tells us in 1 John 3:16, 1 John 3:16, this is how we know what love is. Jesus laid down his life for us, and we should lay down our lives for our brothers.
Wow.
That's what love for your brothers is.
So, you know, that's awesome to think about because John spent 3 years, right, with this man, Jesus, and he saw him live it out day in and day out. And he also heard Jesus proclaim the love that we need to have for one another.
That's right. That's right.
So this isn't like some new concept that John came up with, but Jesus proclaimed it.
Right.
Jesus lived it.
That's right. That's right. And when you read the 1 John, he says, "Look, this is an old command. This is one you've had from the very, very beginning. Love one another." Remember, Jesus said, "The world will know you're my disciples by your love for one another." Mm-hmm. And that was a message that really penetrated deeply into John's heart. And so you read 1 John, and it's all about brotherly love. It's all about the reality of the person and work of Jesus Christ and our response, the heart's response to the coming of Christ, loving God and loving our neighbor. That's a powerful message. And beloved, if your faith is just about you, then your faith is incomplete. If the love that you have is a one-way street between you and the Lord, then you're not living out the totality of the Christian life. Your faith is incomplete.
Well, we talked a lot about self-protection throughout this series and how we are trying to preserve ourselves and protect ourselves from further hurts and stuff. The reality is that the love of God, and when we're in that love relationship with Him, He increases, we decrease. And so what happens is we become more selfless, and we start to think more naturally about other people and their needs and their desires and their welfare. And if that's not happening, then maybe some of this other stuff really hasn't done all of its work in your heart yet, right? But a great expression of my love to God is a heart for other people.
That's right. And again, the passages that we've looked at have said that if you don't do this, you have to really wonder if you're a Christian. Now that's pretty serious. It sounds pretty condemning. It sounds pretty judgy. But John tells us that Jesus laid down his life for us, and we ought to do the same. So I want you to take a second and just think about what Jesus did for you.
Yep.
Or look at it in the negative. What didn't Jesus do for you? What didn't Jesus do for his children? Is there anything that we need that Jesus doesn't provide? Then you need to go and do likewise. That's a pretty heavy calling. But that's the calling on every Christian's life.
It's going to require that we roll up our sleeves and we do business with the Lord on a lot of things. We talked about forgiveness a couple weeks back, right?
Yep.
And when we talked about that, we reminded ourselves, Chris, how much that we'd been forgiven of.
Yes.
Right? The man who has been forgiven much loves much.
That's right.
Right?
That's right. That's right.
It's just, it's part of the equation. And if we really are struggling to love people genuinely, and look, I understand that there's people that are difficult. I get that. But if our heart, generally speaking, is not to love, but to really hate on people, and to just kind of sequester ourselves, and it's like, I just need me and the Lord. Look, that's not the heart of God. We're talking about seeking the heart of God. That's not his heart.
Nope.
Jesus laid down his life every single day.
That's right.
Right? Look at Philippians, man. The divine prerogative. He gave it all up. The one who created the whole universe. And he said he did not consider equality with God something to be grasped, but he laid it aside. He became a servant to us, even to the point of death on a cross.
That's right.
So he's the prime example of what it means to lay down your life in loving people.
He laid it down every single day of his life. Remember, Jesus was a sinless sacrifice. Our righteousness is an imputed righteousness. It's an alien righteousness, right? Yeah. Harkening back to our series on the Reformation and the glorious truths of the Scriptures. And so he could not have served as our sacrifice if he had sinned, if he had caved into temptation, if he had blown it. We could not be saved. And so we tend to think about, and rightly so, the horrors of Golgotha, the horrors of his death.
Yeah.
But think about his sacrifice every single day. Jesus laid down his life for you, for me, every single day. And if you call yourself a Christian, you are to do the same for your brother.
Wow.
Do you?
Yeah.
Are you struggling with your faith? Yeah. Could this be the reason why? Because you don't love your brother in this way. Could it be? But, beloved, John goes on to say this in 1 John chapter 4. He says, we love because he first loved us. If anyone says, I love God, yet hates his brother, he is a liar. For anyone who does not love his brother whom he has seen cannot love God whom he has not seen. And he has given us this command: whoever loves God must also love his brother. John says, if you don't love your brother, you don't love God.
Right.
That's a pretty black and white statement. There's no gray area there.
Yeah. It's like, wow, man, you're really laying it down. And it's so not like the church today, Chris, I got to tell you. It's not to just kind of lay it down like this. Beloved, let us love one another, for love is of God, and everyone who loves is born of God and knows God. Why? Because God is love, right? And so the antithesis, if we're not loving, we're hating people. We're not loving and we're hating.
Right.
And that's the antithesis of who God is and what his heart is.
That's right.
Right? And like you said, he laid it all down. I mean, this guy, he was born in the back alley, so to speak, right? He has to flee with his parents for his life down to Egypt.
Yep.
Right? All that for you and me. All that for you and me. When he comes on the scene in his ministry, this guy, he was a homeless guy. He didn't have a place to stay. They were really kind of at the mercies of whoever would take him in. He laid it all down for us. Are we doing that for one another?
Every day. Every moment of every day. The two greatest commandments are to love God and love your neighbor as yourself. In seeking the heart of God, it's not just about loving the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. It's also about loving your neighbor. Loving and giving of yourself every day. That's the heart of the gospel. And this is what it means to seek the heart of God. Thank you for tuning in, my friends, and I'll talk to you next week.
See you soon.